There you go. All right. Well, thanks for joining in on Thursday, 7 a.m. yoga for our gentle class. We're going to start in a seated position. And we're just going to start real easy with some neck stretches. So reach your fingertips out towards your sides, fingertips reaching towards your mat, and drop your right ear to your right shoulder. Just letting gravity draw your ear towards your shoulder. At the same time, your shoulders are drawn down away from your ears, creating space in the left side of your neck. And bring your head back up to center. Drop your left ear to your left shoulder. With every inhale and exhale, let the exhales drop your shoulders farther away from your ears, not pushing down, but naturally dropping away. And bring your head back up to center and take a few shoulder rolls if that feels good. Scrunching the shoulders up to the ears and then rolling them back. You can roll forward a little bit if that feels good too. And let them settle back to a neutral position. And we're going to take a little twist, just nothing too crazy. But we'll sit up nice and tall and place your right fingertips right behind your spine so that it helps you sit up nice and tall. And then bring your left hand to your right knee. Start to bring your gaze over your right shoulder. And it might start off little at first. Every time you breathe in, think about sitting nice and tall. And every time you breathe out, relax into the twist a little. Take one more breath here. Inhale, exhale, dropping into the twist. And then return to the middle. Coming over to the other side, your left fingertips come behind you. Right hand to left knee. Sit up tall. And exhale gently into the twist. as you look over your left shoulder. And come back to the middle again. We'll make our way into child's pose. So you can rock forward onto your knees if you want. Bring your knees wide to the edge of your mat. Big toes touch. Send your hips back to your heels and slide your hands forward in front of you. And you can rest your forehead on the mat if you wish, or on a block or a blanket. And take the time in child's pose to check in with your body, check in with your breath. Just see where it's at today. Not necessarily judging it, saying it's good or it's bad, but noticing if areas are tight or sore, if your breath is short or long. Wherever it's at today is okay. And in your child's pose, sink into your hips. Maybe imagine sending your breath to any tight spaces. So if you feel a tightness in your hips or your shoulders or your low back, inhale, send fresh oxygenated blood into those tight muscles. And exhale, let go of the tension that you don't need anymore. You don't need to be holding on to. From your child's pose, slowly shift your weight back even further towards your heels as you slide your hands under your shoulders. We'll come up into a tabletop position with your shoulders stacked over your wrists, hips over knees, with a neutral spine. And we'll start to take a little bit of organic movement, maybe hinging back and forth, snaking side to side. Maybe even making some circles, just kind of reminding your spine of all the different directions that it can move. And then we'll take a few cat-cows, starting to connect your breath with your movement. As you inhale, drop your belly, lift your tailbone, lift your gaze, pull the shoulders back away from the ears, and exhale, round your spine for cat. Releasing your head and neck fully, letting them hang loose. And then move through with your own breath, inhaling through cow, exhaling through cat. You can move as fast or as slow as your breath says to. Wherever you're at, take one more full cycle before coming back to a neutral tabletop. And from here, we're going to do a little core, a little balance. We're going to shift weight into our left palm, fingers spread wide, pressed into the mat, so that you can lift your right hand out in front of you. So not too bad, but trying to keep your shoulders squared to the mat. And if you feel pretty balanced here, pretty solid, you can start to extend your left leg out behind you and then lift those toes up off the mat. Keeping your hips squared to the mat and your gaze down so that your neck stays long, aligned with your spine. If you really want to go for a little extra bonus core here, bring your elbow to your knee so they meet in the middle. Extend again. And then place both hand and foot back on the mat. Wiggle it out a little if you need to. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Shift your weight into your right palm. Extend the left arm out in front of you. If you're feeling pretty good here, start to slide your right toes backwards, straightening the leg. When you're ready, lift up the toes. Square the hips to the mat. Suck your belly button into your spine. Keep everything tight. If you want to go for a little bonus, elbow to knee, crunching everything up, extend one more time, and release back down to the mat. Shake it out, wiggle it out. And we'll move into a downward facing dog. So plant your hands on the mat, tuck your toes, lift your knees, lift your hips, and press back. Pedal out your down dog, straightening one leg and then the other. And then bend your knees a little bit so that you can lift your hips high and press your heart towards your thighs. Take a nice full breath in your down dog and exhale, sigh it out. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhale, baby step your feet up to that spot between your hands so that you can come into a forward fold. And you can have your feet hip width apart, or you can have your toes touching if that feels good. But let everything from your waist up hang loose as it's folded over. You can sway side to side. Rest your pinkies in your elbows if you like. You can shake your head yes and shake your head no. Shake your head yes again. So that you know your head and neck are not holding tension. And we'll slowly roll up. Slowly, slowly. Keeping the knees bent a little. And keeping your head and neck relaxed until they're the very last things to come up. And slide your shoulders down and back away from the ears. Shine your palms forward. And root down through your feet without locking your knees. Maybe shift your weight forward and back so that you can find that sweet spot that you feel balanced. And you can press your toes into the mat and feel rooted. At the same time that you're sending energy down through your feet into the ground, you're sending energy up through the crown of your head. Inhale, reach your arms up overhead. And exhale, forward fold. Your hands can come through heart center. Take a minute here in your forward fold. Then inhale to a halfway lift. Your hands can come to your shins or your thighs. Squeeze your shoulder blades back and together so that you're making the shape of the number 7 with your body. And exhale, forward fold. Plant your hands on the mat. Step one foot back and then the other. Come into a high plank. You can come from high plank. You can do a kneeling plank, whichever you like to do. But hinge forward so that your shoulders are over your wrists. Squeeze your elbows into your rib cage and slowly lower down all the way down to the mat, belly to the mat. You can flip your feet so that the tops of your feet are on your mat. And I like to pound them out a little bit. I don't know why, but sometimes this feels really, really good to me. Just kind of grounding. And also, if you live on an upstairs floor and there's people underneath you, it's kind of hilarious to make them wonder what on earth you could be doing in yoga that's making that noise. And once you've pounded out your feet a little bit, release one cheek down to the mat, whichever side you want to. And maybe bend one knee, bend the other, windshield wiper them back and forth a little bit. If you want to, you can roll your ankles in little circles. And then release your feet back down to the mat. Bring your hands under your shoulders and press yourself back through tabletop. Tucking your toes, lift your hips and your knees and come into a downward facing dog again. You might need to pedal this one out a little bit too, since it's only the second down dog. Again, press equal weight into your feet and your hands, spreading your fingers wide, pressing into the mat. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhale, step your feet between your hands for a forward fold. From a forward fold, come into your halfway lift. Squeeze the shoulder blades back in together. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead for extended mountain. And exhale, forward fold. Plant your hands on the mat. Step one foot back and then the other, coming into a high plank. High plank to a low plank this time. Again, you can do it from your knees if you want. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, gaze forward. Exhale, step your feet between your hands, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale all the way up to extended mountain, hands come overhead. And exhale, forward fold, hands through heart center. Plant your hands on the mat. Step one foot back, then the other. High plank to low plank. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And from your down dog, inhale your right leg up behind you and take some hip circles. Just kind of rotating both directions. Maybe kind of taking a three-legged dog, dropping that heel over to the opposite side and looking under your armpit. And then set that foot back down. We'll take a little child's pose if you need to, between sides. Then pop up into down dog again. Lift your left leg behind you. Take some hip circles, rotating outwards and inwards. Maybe just completely opening that side, that left side. And then release the foot back down, come to a child's pose. Take one more breath here in child's pose, resetting. And we'll come back up to a down dog. From your down dog, inhale your right leg up behind you. And exhale, lunge it through between your hands. If it doesn't quite reach, you can toe heel it up so that your knee is stacked over your ankle. Maybe take a minute to surf out your lunge a little bit, hinging back and forth, making sure those hips are awake. And I'm gonna switch sides. So from your low lunge, plant your back foot and can stay at a 45-degree angle. We're gonna come up to a warrior one. So warrior one, You stay facing the front of your mat. Arms come up. Back leg is straight and strong. From here, we're going to take our arms into eagle arms. So our legs are in warrior one, hips and torso facing the front of the mat. For eagle arms, bring your left arm under your right arm. From here, if you want to simply drop your hands to your shoulders, you can. If you want to start to bring your palms together, you can do that. Once your hands are touching, you can start to press the hands away from the face and lift the elbows up. But again, you always have the option to just give yourself a hug. As you inhale, come into a slight back bend. So if you have your palms together, elbows lifted, palms pressing away from the face, take a little back bend. One more breath here. And then as you release your arms, we'll open up into warrior two. So your back foot pivots just a little so that it's parallel to the short edge of the mat. Your arms open up to your sides. And your gaze comes over your right middle finger. Sink a little bit more into that lunge. Take one breath here. And on your inhale, reverse your warrior. Left arm drops down along the leg. Right arm comes up overhead to open up the side body. And exhale, cartwheel your hands down to the mat, framing your front foot. Send the front foot back to meet the back one and move through your version of chaturanga. Inhaling to upward facing dog. Exhale to down dog. And inhale your left leg up behind you. Exhale, lunge it through between your hands. And take the same time that you did on the other side to surf out your lunge, warming up your hips. When you've surfed out that lunge a little bit, set your back heel down, foot at a 45-degree angle. Rise on up to your warrior one. So your hips and your torso are facing the front. And this time, if you want to take eagle arms, your right arm will cross under your left. Hands can rest on your shoulders or the palms can come towards touching. Lift the elbows up away from the chest. Press the hands away from the face. And take a little back bend. And when you release your arms, release into a warrior two, pivoting your right foot so it's parallel to the short edge of your mat. Spread your arms wide to either side and sink into your hips, into your lunge. Make sure that left knee is tracking right over your left toes. Now flip around again. And from here, Inhale, reverse your warrior. So your left arm comes up overhead. Right hand can just slide down your leg gently. On your next exhale, release both hands down to the mat, framing your front foot. Send your front foot back to meet the back. And chaturanga, high plank to low plank. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then come down to a child's pose once again. Take that short rest. Rest, reset, reconnect with your breath. When you're ready, we'll meet back in downward facing dog. From your down dog, inhale your right leg up, lunge it through between your feet. Rise on up to warrior two. From warrior two, straighten your front leg, pivot your front toes inward so that you have both toes, both feet parallel to the short edges of your mat in a wide-legged stance. And from here, you can release your arms down to your sides if you want. We're going to take a side lunge, and I like to start by lunging my left leg, and it can be as small or as big as you want. So as you start to bend your left leg and shift your weight towards your left side, you might be here. You might decide that you want to come all the way down so that you're on your toes, basically, you're on your left toes, and that your right leg is completely extended out to the side. This can be kind of hard on some people's knees. So if you want to keep that whole foot on the floor and just bring that lunge low, you can. So find your threshold where this pose works for you. And if you want to brace yourself on blocks, you can do that. This is a great spot for blocks. If you'd like to challenge your balance, you can bring your hands to heart center. And take a minute to breathe into the pose. And we'll come back to center. And this is a pretty extreme stretch. So take your time, coming back to center, placing that left foot fully on the mat, coming back to almost a wide-legged forward fold, and maybe bend both knees, bringing some blood flow and movement back into the legs before we switch sides. You can readjust your stance if you need to, if you need to go a little wider or a little shorter stance. And then again, figure out where you want to go on this right side. You know, it might just be bent a little, coming into a lunge with your whole foot on the floor. You might come up onto your tippy toes and fully bend that knee. And this side might be different than the left side. Like for me, I was pretty good coming down all the way on my left side. My right knee decided it wanted to pop every time I bend it now. So this is probably not going to be the one for me. And as you hold this pose, acknowledge the tight spaces. And you feel the stretch, the good, healthy stretch. Acknowledge that too. And I think a lot of times we try to ignore discomfort, push through it, or push ourselves through too much discomfort, but enjoy the sweet spot. You can find a really good one. When you feel pretty even with your other side, you feel pretty balanced, take your time, coming back up to your wide-legged forward fold. Bend and straighten both legs again. Whatever movements feel good here. And then from your wide-legged forward fold, point your right toes out towards the front of the mat and bend your front knee. We're going to come up to a standing pose like a warrior two. And then straighten your front leg again. Once you get to standing, you can put your hands on your hips. We're going to come into a triangle pose. So you want to kick your hips back towards the back of your mat as you reach forward and lower your right arm down on the inside of your thigh. Lift up your left arm and try to draw your left hand backwards a little bit so that it's opening up the front of your chest if you feel like you're starting to collapse and round over. This is another place I really love blocks. And we're going to transition over to the other side. We're going to do that by coming back up to standing. So let that top arm pull you up And bend that front knee again, just a little bit so it's not locked up. And we're gonna pivot our feet. So right foot comes back into parallel, left foot points towards the back of your mat now. And straighten the front leg. Kick the hips towards your back leg, what's now your back leg, or your right leg. Reach forward with your left hand and tip over. Right hand comes up, left hand comes down. Find your triangle pose on this side. And open the chest. Take one more breath here. And then bend your front knee as you come back up to standing. Pivot that left foot in. We're going to come up to a 5-pointed star. So reach both your arms up high. And then we'll come down into Malasana or a yogi squat. So you can scoot your feet a little bit closer together, a little wider than hip width, but not quite forward fold, wide leg. And then come down into a squat. Again, if this is okay on your knees. If this is not okay on your knees, definitely don't come down as far. But I will sometimes even use my elbows to press my knees apart if my hips are liking that opening. And from Malasana, we'll work our way into a seated pose. So you can bring your hands down to the mat. If you want to simply set your bum down from here, you can, or you can work your way into seated however you want. We'll come into staff pose. So both legs come straight out in front of us. Toes pointed up towards the ceiling as your feet are flexed. And then sit up nice and tall. If you want to stay here, you can. If you like to fold forward in your staff pose, reach your arms up overhead. Big inhale. As you exhale, hinge from your hips, lead with your heart over your legs. And when you can't hinge any farther, release your hands down. And if it feels okay on your low back, you can fully collapse forward, rounding your back and releasing your head and neck. And as you hold this pose up to a point, your muscles will stop protecting your joints. They'll realize that they are safe enough to relax, and you might find this pose changing. You may feel like you can fold deeper and surrender into that pose, or you may feel like you've reached the perfect point and now it's time to ease out of it. So listen to your body and follow the direction that it gives you. We'll take 5 more breaths here. And then slowly start to use your hands to walk back towards your torso, using that support so that you're not using your back, straining your back to come back to seated. And you can windshield wiper your legs back and forth or bounce them out, do jelly legs if that feels good. We'll come into a cobbler's pose. So the soles of your feet come together and the knees drop down towards your mat. Again, you can stay seated here if you feel an inner thigh and hip opening, or if you'd like to fold forward, you can. Before you fold, decide how far away from your body you want your heels. Some people will feel different sensations at different positions. Once you have your heels situated, again, hinge from your hips, lead with your heart, and fold forward only as far as you'd like to. If you have blankets or pillows or things that you use as props at home that you want to use, you can always build those up to give your forehead a place to rest. And likewise, you can always place things under your knees if you find that your fold is pressing your knees too far down towards the ground and you want to make this a more restorative pose. Once again, as you come back to seated, move slowly. Use your hands to walk yourself back up. And maybe even use your hands to draw your knees together. Take whatever movements feel good to release any lasting tension. And then we'll work our way onto our backs for Shavasana and your final resting pose. However you'd like to get there, you can roll over onto your side. You can grab the back of your thighs and roll back. And draw one knee and then the other into your chest so that you can give both knees a good hug. And you might want to rock side to side or make some circles with your knees here. And then tee out your arms and let your knees drop over to one side. And we'll switch sides. You can even use your hands to bring your knees back to center and drop them over to the other side. It's a very relaxed, very gentle supine twist. Let the knees fall where they may. And bring the knees back to center one more time. Take any last minute movement that you like before your Shavasana. And then slide your legs down one at a time to the mat, letting your feet fall open. Hands can rest down by your sides. You could rest a hand on your belly, a hand on your heart if you like. You could even bend your knees with your feet on the mat and let your knees fall together if that feels better on your low back. And as you enter into your Shavasana, if you notice any lasting areas of tension, imagine that tension melting into the ground like it's being absorbed by the earth underneath you. With every breath in, you're bringing new, fresh air that serves your body. And with every exhale, you're letting go of the things that you don't need. Allow your breath to flow easily, like the waves of an ocean washing up onto the beach and then receding again. Feel your belly rise with every breath in and fall with the breath out. And start to feel your body in space again. Notice the places where your arms and legs and back are touching the ground. You can feel it solidly underneath you, supporting you. And bring some movement back into the body, some small movements starting with the fingers and the toes. Maybe you roll your wrists and your ankles in little circles. But moving slowly, whenever you're ready, roll over onto your favorite side. And you can bring your knees up into your chest a little bit or use your arm as a pillow. Taking your time to transition. And again, when you're ready, use your hands to press yourself back up to seated. You can keep your eyes closed or you can start to flutter them open to let some light back in. And I hope you have an awesome Thursday. Thanks for doing yoga with me this morning. Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Yep, have a good one.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Bye.